Hey everybody, Roy White at RW3 on Twitter here with another video for the channel. Today's video is going to focus on what I thought were the three most entertaining side stories from the most recent episode of The Last Dance. Now, if you haven't been following ESPN's 10-part series documenting Michael Jordan's final championship run with the Chicago Bulls in 1998. It's titled The Last Dance. They have 10 episodes. They just had episode 9 and 10 on Sunday, so we got to finally see the finale where they take on the Utah Jazz, and Michael Jordan ultimately hits the shot to end the series. I'm going to get into all of that and a couple of the side stories of that I really love and find entertaining, and I hope you will too as we do a deep dive into those. Now, you might be asking yourself, why does it look so different? What's this circle around your face? How come I can see your computer screen? Well, I've talked about that before. I desperately want to up the production value on my channel. I want this thing to be the absolute best YouTube channel that it can possibly be. And in order to do that, I need to play around with some of my settings, play around with some of the technology that's out there. So I'm using a new program today to record this video and hopefully bring you some new exciting content that I think will be fun and entertaining for you going forward. And who knows, maybe I can continue to use this format going forward. Like I said, it's just kind of a trial run. We'd love to hear your thoughts or comments. If you have them, leave them down below after you hit that subscribe button, of course, to the channel. And again, we'd love to hear what you think. If you like it, if you don't, if you think there's other ways that I can improve the channel, we'd love to hear that. But enough about all that. We'll figure out that in the future. On we go with the three stories from The Last Dance that I enjoyed the most. And we'll start with one regarding Michael Jordan. The director of the film, of the documentary series, Jason Heir, Jason Heir, Heir, her is how his last name is spelled. So I apologize for not knowing that right off the top. Jason Heir spoke on the Jalen and Jacoby podcast about a particular story regarding the Michael Jordan flu game. Now, most people were stunned to hear that Michael Jordan's flu game, Game 5 of the 1998 NBA Finals, wasn't even, in fact, a flu game. MJ himself claims that he ordered a pizza the night before, which was conspicuously delivered by 5 delivery guys, and MJ spent the entire night eating the pizza by himself. What they didn't mention in the documentary, and what the director, Jason Heir, mentioned in the interview with Jalen and Jacoby on the podcast, is that MJ actually ensured that none of his teammates or anybody else would eat one slice of that pie by spitting on every single piece. All right, think about that. Every piece of an 8-slice pie, all right, standard large 8 slices, right, going one by one. Think about that, okay? Now, a lot of people were like, oh, that's MJ. I can't believe he would do that, except for this, all right? This is a story from 2013. This is Wright Thompson, and this is where I'm going to get to put my fancy new production into play. When I do this, watch what I do here. Oh, snap. I didn't do it right. Try this again. Oh, snap. I'm little Roy over here in the corner. Check me out. Yeah, check that out, man. Fun stuff. So anyway, as I mentioned, Michael Jordan spitting on every single slice of pizza. This is a story from Wright Thompson's profile, an Outside the Lines story in 2013, in which he wrote about MJ, quote, "Back when they used to shoot a lot of commercials, Jordan's security team would wait for him in his trailer while he was on set. A woman named Linda cooked Michael's meals, and he loved cinnamon rolls. Who doesn't? She baked a tray and would bring it to him. When it came time to film, he'd see the guards eyeing the cinnamon rolls, and he'd walk over and spit on each one to ensure nobody took his food." This was an MJ staple, going around and spitting on food to claim it for yourself. Now, I got to assume these were all wet spits, right? It has to just be saliva. You do not want a loogie sitting in the middle of your pizza just because you're too selfish to share it with anybody else. You don't want to cut off your nose to spite your face in that way. So I got to assume this was all saliva. MJ, guy must have produced massive amounts of liquids in his body. You see him sweating and perspiring all the time in the clips that they would show from the games that he would play. So I got to believe this was strictly saliva based. No way was he hawking loogies on these things. But even still, a story you maybe should know about Michael Jordan. He was selfish enough to spit on his food so that no one else would eat it. Just a funny aside there. Story number 2 comes from that same director. As I mentioned, he appeared on the Jalen and Jacoby podcast to talk about several different things after each episode. And in this particular clip, he appeared with them to talk about what it was like to interview Dennis Rodman. Now, as I mentioned, Dennis Rodman, one of the best characters of the entire thing. Every time he was on the screen, it was like the most hilarious thing it could possibly be. Everything you would anticipate from Dennis Rodman. And he didn't disappoint even in the interview process. Listen to what Jason said he had to go through when he told Dennis Rodman that the interviews, he was going to need like 10 hours of his time.
He's like, 10 hours, huh? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, I'll give you 10 minutes. Now, I had every page of questions I have is an hour. I had 11 pages for this guy, and he's saying 10 minutes. So he sits down. I'm just kind of shooting the shit with him, and he says, I need a tuna sub from Subway and some chamomile tea. It was like Chappelle sending the guys for a sugar cookie in Queens. It was like, you can't, unless you pass this test, you cannot do this interview. So we got him the tuna sub, we got him the chamomile tea, and he sat down for 3 hours. But that is a difficult guy to interview.
That is the last combination of things that I would think Dennis Rodman would demand when sitting down for an interview. My thought would be like, all right, I want 2 prostitutes. One's got to be questionable, and the other's got to be a little person. Go ahead and find them for me. You got 20 minutes or I'm out. That's the Dennis Rodman I would think. Not a Dennis Rodman that would be asking for chamomile tea. But either way, and a tuna fish sandwich. A tuna fish sandwich, by the way. Would you want to be the guy interviewing him after he had that tuna fish sandwich? So that was really funny to me, a Dennis Rodman story. But the other Dennis Rodman story, the third and final side story that I wanted to get into, was the situation involving him and Karl Malone that ultimately led to their battle, their Bash at the Beach, their appearance on WCW, the Bash at the Beach in 1998 that was taking place shortly after the NBA Finals. And Dennis Rodman was teaming up with Hulk Hogan of the NWO to take on Karl Malone and Lex Luger. Okay? Now, if you don't know those names, it's totally okay. But what I did do is I went back and I pulled a clip of the first time Hulk Hogan introduced Dennis Rodman to the wrestling world as a member of NWO, and I think you will find the entertainment value still holds up today. Check it out. Here's Hogan throwing it to a previously recorded clip with him and Dennis Rodman, and it really kind of reminds you of a sign of the times.
Let's kick back to a little piece of footage to document the newest member of the NWO, Hot Rod Dirty Dennis Rodman.
All right. Hot Rod Dirty Dennis Rodman. Hot Rod Dirty Dennis Rodman. I can relate because for the longest time my nickname was Hot Rod. Roddy was my nickname as a child. But Hot Rod Dirty Dennis Rodman seems like about as fitting as it could be. Let's go on, though. Let's see what their pre-recorded interaction might look like. Let's see his acting chops, huh?
Sweet! Coming up March 16th, NWOites, don't say that Hollywood doesn't deliver. And uncensored, the most censored man in America, Howard Stern, take a back seat. The newest member of the NWO, Big Brah, you've definitely earned your colors, my friend. Because whether it's your new movie Double Team or you and me triple teaming, NWO, man, is your style for life, my friend. We can do a double team, triple team, but the NWO is the new team of the future. Sweet. You got
Okay, look, let's be honest. Rodman going on and on about a double or a triple team, that's the type of stuff I expected him to ask for when he sat down for the interview. Okay? But that wasn't the worst. That was kind of actually fun. It's very entertaining to go back and watch this clip of him being in there. He wasn't even in the ring. It was just all the guys from the NWO celebrating the fact that they had added Dennis Rodman, hyping up this battle against Lex Luger. But again, this was back in March, and the NBA Finals didn't take place until June, obviously. So we fast forward to the game, right? Game 6. Malone and Rodman ultimately end up getting into a scuffle. Now, the reason this is important is because I'm going to play for a clip for you from the color commentator, the guy who would eventually become the color commentator at WCW, who says this entire fight was staged. It was a work by WCW, okay? So we're going to go to the clip. We're going to go to the clip from Game 6, the fight that took place between Rodman and Malone. I want you to listen to what Bob Costas has to say, too, because he has a funny little line in here that you'll laugh about later on when I play the final one of Pat McAfee and Mark Madden. But listen to the play-by-play breakdown of Rodman and Malone getting into it in Game 6 of the NBA Finals.
Jordan missed it just before the shot clock sounds. Rodman battling like crazy, but can't quite hold on to it. Corner set. He and Malone, Rodman and Malone.
Oh, it's right here.
Rodman just trips Malone. They've got to call a flagrant here. They've got to call a flagrant. It's the third on Rodman.
Listen to Bob.
He and Malone, regrettably, are scheduled to wrestle in one of those bogus events next month. Why Malone wants to lower himself to that is anyone's guess. And Rodman apparently wants to start the wrestling now.
Bob is so high and mighty in this moment. 1998, like they weren't willing to admit that wrestling had any appeal nationally, any type. And this was as hot as wrestling was. Like if you weren't around in the 90s, this was probably as hot as wrestling was. The Attitude Era, NWO, the Monday Night Wars. This was as hot as it got. And Bob Costas hated it. And he was so incredulous that Karl Malone would lower himself to being a part of that spectacle. Ha ha ha. Well, guess what, Bob? Not only were they a part of the spectacle, they actually helped set it up. They helped make it a spectacle. And they used your favorite thing, the NBA Finals. They used your platform to do it. Okay? And if you don't believe me, hear it from the man himself. This is Mark Madden, who was behind the scenes with WCW at the time, on with Pat McAfee today, talking about The Last Dance and explaining how Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone orchestrated that fight to help promote the event for WCW.
The one thing that they didn't say in The Last Dance was that scuffle in Game 6 was coordinated by WCW. WCW asked Rodman and Malone to get in some kind of scuffle during the finals by way of promoting the pay-per-view match a month later. That was Hogan and Rodman against DD Me and Karl Malone. That was Bash at the Beach. It drew 1.5 million buys, which I think was WCW's all-time high to that point. And you got the free pup on network TV. That absolutely happened.
How has this story not come out? Has this story come out and I just didn't know about it? I was ignorant to it, or is this something that's pretty well known, or what?
I've been saying it for a couple of years now, and I reiterated it a month ago when the Jordan documentary was just getting underway. It's absolutely true. People don't want to believe that WCW could compromise the NBA Finals, but WCW absolutely did. Now,
absolutely did. Bob Costas, read it and weep, dude. Your favorite sport was hijacked by one that everybody claims, and I would claim it too, is scripted. Okay? You're right. They pulled one over on you. And think of this. Had something happened, had the Utah Jazz won Game 6, would the NBA have been staring at some type of discipline for Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman? Well, fortunately, no. Back in those NBA days, this wouldn't have called for any type of discipline. That got a flagrant foul, and that was the end of it. But in today's NBA, you better believe that would have messed with something. So anyway, hope you guys like these 3 little stories, side stories from The Last Dance that I shared with you, a little deep dive into it. And again, hope you like the new production value. I'm gonna make this thing big one last time to say goodbye to you guys and say thank you so much for checking out the channel. I'm gonna continue to try to do these things on here, get into a couple different other topics as we continue to go forward. And again, thanks for checking out the channel. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you on the next one. Ta-da!